All right, so let's start this broadcast with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. Now, Israel's tourism minister Haim Katz has arrived in Saudi Arabia for the very first such high-level public visit to the kingdom amidst talks to secure bilateral ties between the two nations. The diplomatic travels have come as the United States is pressing its ally, the State of Israel and Saudi Arabia, to normalize ties between them. Now, during the two-day visit, the Israeli minister is holding meetings with his counterparts. Katz's office has not specified as to which countries will be represented in the talks. Now, the landmark visit comes as Riyadh has sent its very first delegation to the West Bank in over 3 decades. Nayef Al-Sudairi, who was appointed as the non-resident ambassador to the Palestinian territories last month, held talks with senior Palestinian officials, including President Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. Now, the US brokered Abraham Accords from 2020 saw the State of Israel normalize its ties with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and even Morocco. Now, back then, Saudi Arabia had not joined in. Analysts, in fact, say that the incentives to strike a deal have now sharpened. For the Saudis, the motivation is a new strategic alliance with the United States of America. Riyadh and Washington have a security relationship, but the kingdom reportedly wants a more formal defense pact. Remember, both Saudi and Israel have issues with Iran, and Iran, of course, is intensifying its nuclear program and is now widely said to be on the threshold of having the technology to develop nuclear weapons, upending the region's security balance. All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we're being joined in by our correspondent Jody Cohen. She's joining us live from Ra'anana in Israel. So Jody, how seriously should this visit in fact be taken, given the fact that it is a multilateral conference that Minister Katz is in fact attending?
Hi, Mohammed. So this visit is being seen as very significant. This is an Israeli minister visiting Saudi Arabia for the first time officially and openly. And as you said, Tourism Minister Haim Katz is at the UN World Tourism Organization conference. He said to Israeli media that he's been received very nicely and it's wonderful to be there. And he talked about tourism as being a bridge between nations. And we've seen that with the Abraham Accords, with more than 1 million Israelis visiting the UAE since then. Now, earlier in September, 9 Israeli officials were visiting Saudi Arabia also for a UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting. And next week, Israel's Communications Minister Shlomo Karhi is visiting Saudi Arabia for the Universal Postal Union's Extraordinary Congress, where he's reported to be set to speak there. And Parliamentary Economic Affairs Committee Chair David Bitan is also set to visit Saudi Arabia next week. Now, all these visits follow the UN General Assembly last week, where US President Biden, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Saudi Crown Prince bin Salman all made statements indicating progress towards normalization. And as you said, it comes as the first ever Saudi Arabian ambassador is presenting his credentials to Palestinian Authority President Abbas. So it appears that with the timings of these two visits that Saudi Arabia appears to be trying to balance ties with the Palestinians, as well as potentially setting the grounds for potentially creating ties with Israel as well.
All right, now what is interesting also, Jody, is the fact that Israel apparently was not allowed to fly its flag at the conference where the Israeli minister Katz is visiting. So what does this say about the acceptance of normalization in Saudi Arabia, and particularly amongst the Saudi people?
So this, I think, is a sign that obviously, we haven't seen normalization yet between the two countries, and the flag is very much seen as a symbol of that. But the visit itself is being seen as a sign that it appears to be getting closer. And as bin Salman himself said in the US last week, that every day the countries, he said, are getting closer to normalization. He also said that the Palestinian issue is still very important. And there's been a poll conducted by the Washington Institute, and that's a think tank focused on US foreign policy. Now, they interviewed in face-to-face interviews 1,000 Saudi citizens, and they said that more than 1/3 of respondents said that they want ties with Israel, such as cooperation on climate change, cybersecurity and water management. Now, the most important issue to them appeared to be religious affairs, and that's because of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. And the second most important issue to them were having ties because of the Palestinians. The findings are seen to be significant because of the history of having no ties between these two countries, and even of animosity in the past.
Right.
The majority in this poll still were not pro-normalisation, but it's interesting that the figures were slightly more favourable among the younger generation. And there's also been a poll in Israel by the Israel Democracy Institute that showed that almost 2/3 of Israeli respondents, whether they were from the left wing or the right wing, favour normalisation and consider it important. And these polls are really being seen as an indication potentially of a sign of what's to come.
Absolutely indeed, Jodie Cohen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and getting us all those details there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.